English Daily, the podcast.
Your English journey starts now. Hey, English learners. Welcome back to your podcast, the English Daily Podcast.
Yes, we're so happy to have you here today. My name is Jack, and I'm your male host for today.
And I'm Anna, your female host. We're so excited to be here with you.
Today's episode is all about talking about yourself, one of the most important skills in English.
That's right. Whether you're meeting new friends, going on a job interview, or just making small talk, knowing how to talk about yourself is super important.
And we're going to make it really practical for you today. We'll cover lots of useful phrases and expressions.
So whether you're a beginner or already speaking well, you'll find something useful here. Don't worry, we'll go at a comfortable pace.
Let's dive right in.
So, Jack, let's start with the most basic thing. How do you usually introduce yourself when you meet someone new?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, it really depends on the situation. Like if I'm meeting someone in a casual setting, I'll just say something like, "Hey, I'm Jack. Nice to meet you."
That's so simple and friendly. I love that. And what about more formal situations, like at work or during an interview?
In those cases, I tend to be a bit more formal. I'd say, "My name is Jack Thompson, and I'm a software developer with about 5 years of experience." You know, something that gives a bit more context about who I am professionally.
Oh, that's really good. I see the difference there. So for our learners, we should emphasize that the way you introduce yourself changes based on the context. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And you know what I think is really important? The key is to keep it natural and not sound like you're reciting a script. Practice makes perfect, right?
Exactly. I remember when I was learning English, I used to practice my self-introduction in front of the mirror every morning. It felt a bit silly at first, but it really helped me feel more confident.
Oh, that's such a great tip. Did you have a specific structure you followed?
Well, I usually started with my name, then where I was from, then what I was doing for a living or what I was studying. But you know what? I've learned that you don't have to include everything at once. Sometimes just your name and a smile is enough for a first meeting.
That's so true. I've met so many people who try to cram everything into their introduction, and it can feel a bit overwhelming. Less is more sometimes.
Yeah, and honestly, if someone wants to know more about you, they'll ask follow-up questions. That's how conversations work, right?
Right. And speaking of follow-up questions, I think it's also important to teach learners how to respond when someone asks them questions back. Like if someone says, "What do?" You shouldn't just say, "I work in IT." Try to add a little something. "I work in IT, specifically in cybersecurity. It's really interesting work."
Oh, that's such a valuable tip. Adding details makes the conversation so much more engaging. It's like you're giving the other person a window into your life.
Exactly. And another thing I want to mention is body language. Even though we're focusing on speaking, nonverbal cues matter too. Make eye contact, smile, and offer a handshake if appropriate. All of that adds to your introduction.
That's so important. I think a lot of learners focus only on the words, but the whole package matters. You want to come across as confident and approachable.
Anna, do you have any memorable stories about introductions? Something that didn't go quite as planned?
Oh my goodness, yes. I have one that still makes me laugh. When I was in university, I was at an international student mixer, and I was trying to introduce myself to this guy from Australia. I said, "Hi, I'm Anna. I'm from Korea, but I'm studying in the States." And he looked at me and said, "Oh, that's cool. Are you Korean?" And I was like, "Yes, I am." It was such a simple question, but I was so nervous that I almost panicked.
That's hilarious. But you know what? Those awkward moments are part of the learning process. Everyone has them, and they're not as bad as they feel in the moment.
True. And the more you practice, the more comfortable it becomes. Now I can introduce myself without even thinking about it. It's like muscle memory.
That's the goal for all our learners out there. Practice until it becomes natural, and don't be afraid of making mistakes. That's how we grow.
So, Jack, let's move on to talking about family. How do you usually describe your family to someone you've just met?
That's interesting. I think I usually start with how many people are in my family and maybe mention my parents or siblings. Like, I have 2 siblings, a brother and a sister. My brother lives in Chicago, and my sister just graduated from college.
Oh, that's a great structure. I do something similar. I'll say something like, I come from a pretty small family. It's just my parents and me. I'm an only child. And then I might add something about what my parents do or where we're from.
Wait, so you're an only child? How was that experience for you?
You know, it was interesting. I used to wish I had siblings when I was younger, especially when I saw my friends with their brothers and sisters. But now I really appreciate it. My parents gave me so much attention and support, and I think it helped me become more independent.
That's a really balanced perspective. I have siblings, so I can't really imagine that, but I hear that from only children sometimes. What about you, Anna? Do you ever talk about extended family, like grandparents or cousins?
It depends on the context. If I'm talking to someone who seems genuinely interested, I might mention my grandparents. I was really close to my grandmother. She lived with us when I was growing up. She taught me so much about Korean cooking.
That's beautiful. Family stories like that are so meaningful. I think when you're describing your family, sharing those little anecdotes makes it so much more interesting than just listing facts.
Exactly. Instead of saying, I have four grandparents, you could say, my grandmother on my mom's side was an amazing cook. She taught me how to make kimchi, and now I make it for my friends. See how much more engaging that is?
Totally. And it's also a great conversation starter. Someone might ask you about the food or about your culture. It opens up so many possibilities.
Now I want to talk about something that can be a bit sensitive. Maybe someone doesn't have a happy family situation. Maybe they're from a broken home or they've lost family members. How should learners handle that?
That's such an important point. You don't have to share everything, especially with people you don't know well. It's completely okay to say something like, my family situation is a bit complicated, or I'd rather not talk about it. That's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, I think it's important to teach learners that they have control over what they share. There's no rule that says you have to give a detailed family history to everyone you meet.
And on the flip side, when you're asking about someone's family, be mindful. Don't ask too many personal questions too quickly. Let the other person share what they're comfortable with.
Do you think it's different in different cultures? Like in some cultures, people ask about family very quickly, while in others, it might be considered too personal.
Oh, absolutely. In some Asian cultures, asking about someone's family or their job very soon after meeting can be seen as a normal part of getting to know someone. But in some Western contexts, it might feel a bit intrusive. It's all about reading the room and being sensitive to cultural differences.
Impressive. That's such valuable insight. I think our learners should be aware of these cultural nuances. It really helps with communication.
Definitely. And at the end of the day, being genuine and respectful goes a long way. If you're truly interested in someone, they'll feel it and they'll be more open to sharing.
Well said. So to summarize, share what you're comfortable with, add personal details to make it interesting, and always be respectful of others' boundaries. Now, let's talk about something a bit more abstract. Describing your personality. How would you describe yourself, Jack?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. I think I'd say I'm pretty laid back and optimistic. I'm the kind of person who tries to see the positive side of things, even when things are tough. But I'm also pretty competitive, especially when it comes to board games.
Board games. That's so specific. I love that you included that. It makes your personality description so much more real than just saying, I'm a positive person.
Yeah, I think adding specific examples or interests helps paint a clearer picture. Plus, it gives the other person something to respond to. They might say, oh, what kind of board games do you like? And then you've got a conversation going.
Exactly. So what about you? How would you describe yourself? I'm curious to hear how you see yourself.
Well, I think I'm pretty analytical. I like to think through problems before making decisions. But I also know that sometimes I can be a bit too critical of myself. I'm working on being more forgiving, you know?
That's so honest of you, Jack. And I think that's something important to teach learners. It's okay to acknowledge your flaws. In fact, it makes you more relatable.
Yeah, I used to try to present this perfect version of myself when I was younger, but I've learned that people connect more with authenticity. It's okay to say, I'm still working on that, or that's something I'm trying to improve.
Absolutely. Now, how do you think learners should describe personality traits in English? Are there any common mistakes they should avoid?
Good question. I think one mistake is using words that are too abstract or too big. Like instead of saying, I'm very introspective, you might want to say something like, I like to think about things carefully, or I enjoy spending time reflecting on my experiences.
That's a great point. Using simpler, more accessible language helps the other person understand you better, and it makes the conversation flow more naturally.
Another tip is to use opposites to explain your traits, like, I'm pretty patient, but I can get impatient when I'm stuck in traffic. That adds dimension to your description.
Oh, I love that. It's like you're giving a more complete picture. I also think it's helpful to ask other people how they see you. Sometimes our self-perception is different from how others perceive us.
That's so true. I've had friends tell me things about myself that I never would have thought of. It's always an eye-opener.
Curious, do you have any funny stories about personality descriptions? Like maybe someone described you in a way that was totally unexpected.
Oh, yes. One time a coworker described me as intimidating when I first met him. I was so surprised because I never thought of myself that way. But he said it's because I always looked really focused and serious when I was working. Once he got to know me, he realized I was actually really friendly and silly.
That's hilarious. But it just goes to show first impressions aren't always accurate, and people might see you differently than you see yourself.
Definitely. And that's why it's good to be open to feedback and to keep learning about yourself. We're all constantly evolving, right?
Absolutely. So my advice to learners is be honest, be specific, and don't be afraid to show a little vulnerability. That's what makes connections. Let's shift gears and talk about hobbies and interests. This is usually one of the easiest topics for people to discuss because it's something they're passionate about. What's your main hobby, Jack?
Oh, I have so many. But if I had to pick one, I'd say it's playing guitar. I've been playing for about 8 years now, and it's such a great stress reliever for me. Whenever I have a bad day, I just pick up my guitar and play for a while.
8 years? That's impressive. What kind of music do you play?
Mostly acoustic folk and indie stuff, artists like Jack Johnson and Iron and Wine. But I also like to learn popular songs like something by Ed Sheeran or John Mayer. It's fun to play music that people recognize.
Do you perform in front of people, or is it more of a private thing?
Mostly private, but I've played at a few open mic nights. That was terrifying at first, but also really exhilarating. I remember my hands were shaking so much during my first performance.
Oh no, but you survived, obviously. That's the important thing.
Yeah, I didn't mess up too badly, which was a win. Now, what about you, Anna? What are your hobbies?
I love cooking, obviously, but I'm also really into hiking and photography. I try to go on a hike at least once a month, and I always bring my camera. It's such a peaceful way to connect with nature and capture beautiful moments.
That sounds amazing. Where do you usually go hiking?
There's this beautiful trail near my house that goes along a river. The scenery is stunning, especially in the fall when the leaves change colors. I have so many photos from there.
Do you have a favorite photo you've taken?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think it would be this sunrise I captured last spring. I woke up really early, drove to this hilltop, and just waited for the sun to come up. When it did, the whole sky turned this gorgeous orange and pink. It was magical.
That sounds absolutely beautiful. Now, I think it's important to talk about why hobbies are such a great topic for conversation. What do you think, Anna?
I think hobbies are great because they're something people are genuinely interested in, so they naturally want to talk about them. Plus, sharing your hobbies gives the other person insight into who you are and what you value.
Exactly. And it also helps you find common ground. If you discover that you both like hiking, you can share recommendations and maybe even plan to go together sometime.
That's the beauty of it. Now, for learners, I think it's helpful to be able to talk about not just what you do, but why you enjoy it. Like, instead of just saying, I like reading, you could say, I love reading because it helps me escape to different worlds and learn new things.
That's such a good point. Adding the why makes it so much more meaningful, and it's also a great way to connect with someone on a deeper level.
Do you have any tips for learners who might not have a lot of hobbies or interests to talk about?
I would say, don't worry, hobbies can be simple. You don't have to be an expert or do something impressive. Even things like watching movies, listening to music, or hanging out with friends count as hobbies. And you can always start exploring new things.
Absolutely. There's no rule that says your hobby has to be impressive. The important thing is that it brings you joy.
And who knows, you might discover a new passion along the way. That's part of the adventure.
Now, let's talk about something that often comes up in introductions, what you do for work or what you're studying. How do you usually describe your job, Jack?
That's a good question. I usually start with the basics. I'm a software developer. And then I might add a bit about what kind of development I do, like web development or mobile apps. If the person seems interested, I'll go into more detail about the specific projects I'm working on.
That's a great structure. You start with the simple answer and then add more information based on the other person's interest level. I think that's a really smart approach.
Thanks. I learned that over time. When I was younger, I used to give way too much information right away, and I could see people's eyes glaze over. Now I gauge the situation and adjust accordingly.
That's such an important skill. How do you do that? How do you know when someone wants more detail?
Mostly through body language and verbal cues. If they ask follow-up questions like, what kind of apps? Or what programming languages do you use? That's a sign they want to know more. If they just say, oh, that's cool, then I keep it brief.
That's really wise. Now, what about students? What if someone is still in school or university? How should they describe what they're studying?
That's a great question. I think it's totally fine to say something like, I'm a student majoring in business, or I'm studying biology at the moment. You can also mention what year you're in or what specific area you're interested in.
And it's okay if you're not sure what you want to do yet. You can say something like, I'm still figuring things out, but I'm really enjoying my psychology classes. That shows you're engaged and open-minded.
Curious, do you think there's a difference in how people talk about their jobs in different cultures? Like, is it more common to ask about work in some cultures than others?
That's a really interesting point. In the US, it's very common to ask, what do you do? Early in a conversation. It can even be one of the first questions. But in some other cultures, it might be seen as too personal or even rude, especially if the person is unemployed or in a low-status job.
That's important to know. I think being aware of these cultural differences helps avoid awkward situations.
Definitely. And also, some people might not want to define themselves solely by their job. They might say something like, I work in marketing, but what I really love is painting in my free time. That gives you a more complete picture of who they are.
I love that. It reminds us that our jobs don't define our entire identity. We are so much more than what we do for a living.
Curious, what about people who are between jobs or are currently unemployed? How should they handle that question?
That's totally fine. You can say something like, I'm currently looking for opportunities in project management, or I'm taking some time to figure out my next steps. There's no shame in it. Life has different seasons, you know?
Exactly. And I think being honest and confident about your situation is key. If you're comfortable where you are, others will be too. Now, let's talk about dreams and goals, a topic that can lead to some really meaningful conversations. What are some of your goals, Jack?
That's a big question. I have both short-term and long-term goals. Short-term, I'm trying to learn a new programming language, Rust. It seems really interesting, and I think it would make me more marketable in my field.
Oh, that's practical. What about long-term goals?
Long-term, I'd love to start my own tech company someday. I've had this idea for an app that helps people track their mental health and wellness. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but it's something I dream about.
That's so meaningful. And it's great that you have both practical and aspirational goals. I think that's important.
Thanks. What about you, Anna? What are your dreams and goals?
Well, one of my dreams is to travel to every continent. I've been to 5 so far: Asia, North America, Europe, Australia, and Africa. I'm missing South America and Antarctica.
Antarctica? That's ambitious. but I love that you have such an exciting goal. How did that dream start?
When I was in college, I read this book about Antarctica and I became fascinated by it. The idea of this pristine, untouched continent just blew my mind. I knew I had to see it someday.
That's such an inspiring story, and it shows how a book or experience can spark a lifelong dream. I think that's beautiful.
Thank you. I also have professional goals, like starting my own cooking show or writing a cookbook, but the travel thing is really my passion.
I think having dreams like that really enriches your life. They give you something to work towards and look forward to. Even if you never fully achieve them, the journey is worth it.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to share your dreams with others. You never know who might be able to help you or connect you with opportunities.
Do you think there are any cultural differences in how people talk about their dreams? Like, are some cultures more comfortable sharing ambitious goals than others?
That's a really interesting point. In some cultures, talking about your dreams might be seen as boastful or unrealistic, but in others, like the US, it's encouraged. I think it's important to read the room and be mindful of your audience.
That's great advice. And even if you're not comfortable sharing your deepest dreams right away, you can always start with smaller, more achievable goals, like I want to run a 5K or I want to learn to make sourdough bread.
Sourdough bread, that's a great one. During the pandemic, so many people got into baking.
Yes, I tried it too, but my bread came out like a rock. I think some skills are just not meant for me.
Oh no, but the important thing is that you tried, right? That's what matters.
Exactly, and I think that's a good message for our learners. Don't be afraid to dream big, but also be kind to yourself along the way. Not every goal needs to be achieved perfectly.
Now it's time for a vocabulary breakdown. Today we're going to look at some really useful phrases for talking about yourself.
I'm excited about this. Let's get started.
First up, to introduce yourself. This means to tell someone your name and a bit about yourself for the first time. Example, I introduced myself to my new neighbor by saying, "Hi, I'm Anna."
Another one is to come from, which is used to describe where you're originally from or your background. Example, I come from Seoul, South Korea.
Great! Next, to make a good first impression. This means to create a positive feeling when you meet someone for the first time. Example, smiling and making eye contact helps you make a good first impression.
Then we have to get along with, which means to have a friendly relationship with someone. Example, I really get along with my coworkers.
Next, to have something in common. This means to share interests, experiences, or qualities with someone else. Example, we discovered we have a lot in common because we both love hiking.
Then we have to be from a big family or to be from a small family. This describes how many siblings you have or the size of your family. Example, I'm from a big family. I have 3 brothers and 2 sisters.
Next, to be an only child. This means you have no brothers or sisters. Example, she's an only child, so she got a lot of attention from her parents.
Then we have to work in or to work for. These phrases describe your job or employer. Example, I work in education or I work for a tech company.
Next, to major in. This is used when describing your college or university studies. Example, I majored in English literature.
Then we have to be passionate about, which means to have strong interest or enthusiasm for something. Example, I'm really passionate about environmental conservation.
Next, to take up a hobby. This means to start doing something as a hobby. Example, I took up photography during the pandemic.
Then we have to be good at or to be talented at. These describe your skills or abilities. Example, she's really good at playing the piano.
Next, to set a goal. This means to decide what you want to achieve. Example, I set a goal to run a marathon this year.
Then we have to achieve a goal, which means to successfully reach or accomplish something you wanted to do. Example, after 2 years of practice, I finally achieved my goal of learning Spanish.
Next, to dream of or to dream about. These phrases describe something you hope to do or have in the future. Example, I've always dreamed of visiting Antarctica.
Then we have to be willing to, which means to be ready or happy to do something. Example, I'm willing to learn new things every day.
Next, to look forward to. This means to feel excited or happy about something in the future. Example, I'm really looking forward to our vacation next month.
Then we have to deal with, which means to handle or manage a situation or problem. Example, my job involves dealing with customers every day.
Next, to be responsible for. This means to have the duty or task of doing something. Example, I'm responsible for managing the team's schedule.
Then we have to be proud of, which means to feel satisfied and happy about something you've done or about someone else. Example, I'm really proud of my sister for graduating from medical school.
Last but not least, to make a living. This means to earn money to support yourself. Example, she makes a living as a freelance writer.
Those are some fantastic phrases. I'm sure our learners will find them super useful.
Now let's move on to our reflection questions. These are questions for you to think about and maybe practice answering out loud.
Let's get started.
First question, what is your name? And how do you usually introduce yourself to new people?
Think about whether your introduction changes depending on whether you're meeting someone casually or in a professional setting.
Second question, describe your family. How many people are in your family and what are they like?
Don't worry if your family situation is unique. Share what you're comfortable with.
Third question, how would you describe your personality? What are your strengths and weaknesses?
Think of 3 adjectives that capture who you are and try to give examples.
Fourth question, what are your hobbies and interests? Why do you enjoy them?
Remember to explain the why. It makes your answer much more interesting.
Fifth question, what do you do for work or study? How would you explain your job or major to someone who knows nothing about it?
Try to explain it in simple terms, as if you were talking to a 5-year-old.
Sixth question, what are some of your short-term and long-term goals?
Both big dreams and small, achievable goals count.
Seventh question, what is something you're really passionate about? What gets you excited?
This could be a cause, an activity, or anything that brings you joy.
Eighth question, what is a memorable or meaningful experience you've had that shaped who you are today?
It could be something from childhood, a trip, a person, or a challenge you overcame.
Ninth question, if you could describe yourself in one sentence to a stranger, what would you say?
This is a fun one. Try to capture the essence of who you are in just one sentence.
Finally, 10th question, what is something about yourself that you'd like to improve or work on?
Remember, it's okay to acknowledge areas for growth. That's part of being human.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. We hope you enjoyed learning about how to talk about yourself in English.
Don't forget to practice these phrases and questions. The more you use them, the more natural they'll become.
Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on English Daily, the podcast.
Take care, everyone, and keep practicing.
Your learning journey doesn't stop here. Keep improving your English. Click the next video or explore more episodes we've picked just for you. See you in the next lesson.